Hello everybody, I believe we are now live. Hello, welcome to the coverage of the Makerfield by-election. This is the big one, folks. This is the one that everyone's been waiting for. The by-election that not only will decide who is the next MP for Makerfield, but perhaps, more importantly, who could potentially be the next Prime Minister. This is a unique by-election that we have been covering extensively for the last couple of weeks. Obviously, the reason this by-election was triggered, to give some additional context, was obviously a Labour MP named, I believe, Josh Simons, stood down so that Andy Burnham could run in the seat. This wasn't the first time this has been attempted. The same thing was attempted in Gorton and Denton, which led to the Green victory. So this is the second time this happened. Obviously, this time Labour didn't block Andy Burnham from running. And so it's highly likely that if I have sound not good. Ooh, hang on. Sorry. Hang on 1 second. Let me check that. Give me 1 second, everyone. Okay, I don't know how's that? Is that better or still bad? How are we looking? Are we better now? There's always a technical issue with these things. I'm in Makerfield and voted for Andy. Hopefully I'm sounding all right now. Hopefully I'm sounding better. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Let me know if I sound better. Million miles better. Good. Okay. I had a bit of a technical issue. Apologies there. Yes. So I was trying to give a bit of context for the by-election. So obviously this race was called basically because, as I said, obviously Andy Burnham wants to stand to essentially oust Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. That's why this by-election has been getting so much coverage on basically every political channel you'll be watching at the moment. They'll all have been talking about this one because this is the one for Labour. I mean, I genuinely believe that Burnham could be the last chance saloon for the Labour, genuinely. I think he is the only real shot they have of defeating reform in an election context. I'm still not 100% sold on him, and I think we're gonna go over some of the reasons why today. But I still think he is the strongest, potential candidate that Labour have for a general election context for being Prime Minister. It really will depend on what he does, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about potentially what I think he could do, and what I would like to see him do if he did get the job of Prime Minister. However, of course, in order to do that, first he has to win the Makerfield by-election. And there has been a lot of stuff going on today. Obviously, polling has just closed. In fact, let me get it up. The official Politics UK tweet. I think they did just tweet saying polling has now closed in Makerfield. So hold on, let me get it up. Voting has now closed in Makerfield. The result expected from 3 a.m. As always, we'll bring you updates throughout the night, so make sure to turn on post notifications. I will not be here until 3 a.m. tonight. I will unfortunately tell you now, I will not unfortunately be here until 3 a.m. I don't think I've got it in me. I'll try and stay on for as long as possible. But to be honest, the result tends to become clear in these things well before then, historically speaking. Like, historically, we tend to get a good idea, I would say, sort of an hour or two into counting, in my experience at least. Like, I remember when Caerphilly was going on, it seemed to be a pretty sure bet that Plaid Cymru had won it quite early on in the night. To be fair, there's a lot more votes to count. This is, a much bigger constituency, and obviously I'm expecting turnout to be very, very high for this, what with obviously the national media coverage and basically everyone knowing that if you vote for Andy Burnham, it could be your chance to change the Prime Minister. And I think that's one thing that Labour are going to have to their advantage, is effectively it's going to allow them to basically claim that their ticket is actually a change ticket, rather than a continuation ticket, because obviously one thing that Reform thrives on is being the anti-establishment vote, so to speak. And obviously it's harder for Reform to claim that if the guy who is running for Labour wants to oust the current Labour leadership. Do you know what I mean? So they can kind of harness some of that disestablishment, that dissatisfaction with the establishment and the current Labour government that has previously been hampering them in these local elections. So it's a very interesting sort of time, and it's going to be very interesting to see what goes on. However, before we get into the serious stuff, I wanted to highlight a post from our good friend Nigel, and I say that sarcastically. Last night, following the victory of England against Croatia in the World Cup, he posted a proper job at England with a picture of him downing a beer in an England t-shirt in a pub. However, people recognised quite quickly that this is the exact same picture of him from 2024. So he just re-uploaded the same picture of him at a pub watching the football. I'm going to be completely honest, I'm not even convinced he watches football. You know, I think he's such like a false character and such like a what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of he's like a mirage almost, you know, especially in Clacton. It's just, to me, he comes across as very, very fake. You know, and it's I think stuff like this just kind of prove that is the case. And naturally, you know, the Reform supporters taking it very, very well when their beloved liege is called out. But anyway, so yeah, I thought that was a funny story to start on, just him doing this. I wanted to, of course, bring up a little bit of the betting odds. And we're also going to bring up the polling as of recent as well. So the betting odds for Makerfield, implied chances of winning, and this is taken from GB Politics as well, which is like a more right-wing account from what I can see. Labour are on 85.73%, to Reform UK on 11.79%, and Restore Britain on 2.3%. We're going to talk about Restore Britain in just a second, because I think that Reform are getting increasingly worried, and Farage is getting increasingly worried about Restore Britain, and he had some very interesting things to say about them on a recent interview with The Telegraph that I want to cover as well. I'm going to get the chat up on my phone because I'm having trouble flicking back and forth at the moment, and I want to be able to read what you guys are saying. Turn this down. Thank you for everyone who's watching currently. Be sure to like, subscribe, and all the rest of it. Predicting about 50% vote share for who? For who? Which party? There are in fact 2 Scottish by-elections. You are very correct. The reason, obviously, a lot of people aren't covering them is largely just because of the significance of this one, which is not to say every by-election is significant, of course, but this has more of an impact, like on kind of just the leadership. You know, I think if the Scottish by-election had an impact on who would be First Minister, you might see similar coverage. And obviously, normally I would, you know, very much like to cover them as well. Because obviously, I'm a big, you know, supporter of, you know, the nationalist parties. Obviously, I voted for Plaid in the Welsh elections. And maybe we will do a bit of coverage of them later on as well. But obviously the Makerfield one is taking priority because of how important it is to the national picture, which is not to, of course, diminish the Scottish by-elections. It's just, like I say, this one is the big one. You know, I don't think many, if any, by-elections ever really get this type of coverage at all. In fact, there's just been an update on the BBC website. I've just seen here because I had this open. Chris Mason has branded it the most important by-election of my lifetime. I love by-elections and have covered dozens, but I have never reported on one quite like this one. I can't claim to have been in the count centre for every single one of the 164 Westminster by-elections in my lifetime. I was born in April 1980, but I would say without hesitation, this is the most important one in those 46 and a bit years. And it is important, irrespective of outcome. Labour have been consistently upbeat about their prospects in Makerfield for a good few weeks now. They have flooded the constituency today, and I hear they are confident. Plenty of those who said they would vote Labour have done. The uncertainty for them is how successful or otherwise Reform has been getting out its vote. including folk who may not usually vote. The additional curveball in the race is how many votes Restore Britain attract, the party set up by former Reform UK MP Rupert Lowe. If Andy wins, as many suspect, the drama around the Labour leadership, and therefore who is our Prime Minister, will crank up. But here's the thing, if Andy Burnham loses, it will also crank up. Supporters of the Prime Minister are already ringing round, talking up his record and talking up his determination. We can expect to hear from him in the morning, reacting to the result. In short, the importance of this by-election rests on the simple truth that tens of thousands of folk in a collection of places broadly to the south of Wigan, Winstanley, Plattbridge, Hindley, Ashton in Makerfield and others have an outsized say on who our next Prime Minister will be. To be fair, that's true of all of them, basically. That's true of basically all of them. Like, particularly non-general election context, like a lot of the Tory leaderships are basically just decided by a bunch of, party members, which obviously, I'm not saying that's great either, but like, yeah, that's just the weird quirks of our system, I guess. And it is true as well. There was a report from the Times that said that there was already money on the line for Starmer supporters to fund his election contest, his leadership contest, I should say. Told Labour are making 120 voter contacts a minute in Makerfield right now. This was a few hours ago. This is from Patrick Maguire at the Times. Exclusive, Starmer has more than £100,000 in pledged donations for leadership contest. Also sounding out hires, but critics doubt he will raise serious cash from unions. Burnham likely to get donations from unions, members, and Greater Manchester business people. So yeah, he is already basically gearing up, because here's the thing, it won't be long. As soon as Burnham wins this by-election, I wouldn't be surprised if the leadership contest is basically immediately set in motion. I wouldn't be surprised as well if Wes Streeting also tries his hand, although I don't expect he would ever win a Labour leadership contest. Mark Mangan says, won't it be embarrassing for Labour if Andy Burnham loses? Like, what do they do then? Does Wes Streeting just shrug his shoulders, do a leadership challenge and probably won't win? Yeah, this is the interesting thing, and this is kind of what I've been saying. For Labour, I do think this is the last chance to win, because if Andy Burnham loses, then essentially they are stuck with Starmer for the foreseeable future. And I think that would just make their unpopularity become ever more terminal. The longer he stays in that position, the longer I firmly believe reform will rise and Labour will suffer in the polls as a result. I think at this point he is just electoral kryptonite. I genuinely believe that, and it doesn't really matter how many pivots or shifts or resets he does. I think ultimately the voters have had their say on Starmer, and they're not impressed with what they say, with what they see. Rayner or Cooper might push themselves forward. I also heard a rumour a while ago that Miliband might sort of position himself as a soft left Labour candidate if Burnham didn't get in. I don't know how true that was, but I remember reading that some time ago. But I want to talk a little bit about the sort of desperation from Reform, because I do think Reform are starting to get a bit desperate in this campaign. Last night, Reform UK reported Andy Burnham to the police over an alleged breach of lockdown rules in 2021. Burnham allies say it's a baseless and desperate smear on the eve of the Makerfield by-election. So yeah, it seems pretty clear to me that, like, you know, they've pulled this trick out to try and basically have Burnham stumble at the last section. Obviously, if this was such an important thing, why exactly would they wait until now, just on the eve of a by-election that they are racing against Andy Burnham in? I don't think there's actually any truth in this. I think it's pretty obviously a setup by them. But it does characterise, I think, this by-election is the most desperate we've seen Reform. Now, that's not to say that I don't think Reform could win. I think Reform very well still could win. But I think, if you want my opinion, it's becoming increasingly likely that Labour and Andy Burnham have this in the bag. And in order to show what I mean, I've got this video up from... but it's not just Labour that Reform are desperately scared of. It is also the challenger party on the right, Restore Britain, set up by Rupert Lemon. I've got a great little clip to show you guys from ITV that they've put together.
Take a look at this graph. These are the results in Makerfield from the 2024 general election. We can see Labour won clearly, getting 45% of the vote compared to Reform's 31%. But a lot's changed in 2 years, because look at what happens if we update this graph with the latest opinion polls in the Makerfield by-election. Straight away we can see Reform have surged, and they're placed just 5% behind Labour.
So you can see there, I think this was the YouGov Sky poll. It has Labour on 46% and Reform on 41%, up from their 2024 general election result, with Labour managing to maintain most of their result, but with the obvious main kind of difference being the Restore Britain presence.
But hang on, what's this bar here? You might not recognise it because it's a new party, Restore Britain, sitting on 7% of the vote share. A party that until last year didn't even exist. And here's why it matters so much. Because if you add Restore's share to Reform's, the combined vote in Makerfield beats Labour.
While this is true, I do want to add a couple of caveats to this. Obviously, while it is true that if you combine the Reform and Restore vote share, Reform would win, I don't necessarily think all those who are inclined to vote for Restore would necessarily vote Reform if it came to it. I feel like a lot of the people voting for Restore specifically are voting for Restore out of an anger with Reform. So I don't know whether this translation is as direct as I think some people think it is. I will say, like, Restore, sorry, can they change names? They're too similar. They're too similar phonetically. Restore have been going all at it on social media these last couple of days, but it's hard to know really like how good their performance is actually going to be, because we've only really seen them perform in like the Greater Yarmouth area. We haven't really seen them in a by-election context like this. But if they did get 7%, I mean, obviously, in some ways, that would be good for people who don't want, a right-wing government, as it would split the right-wing vote and also basically make it easier for, in this case, Labour, but, say in other cases, it could be the Greens or whoever, to win. However, I do worry about the rise of a party so right-wing as that, a party that genuinely sees Reform as moderate, getting 7% of the vote, coming third, beating out the Tories and becoming the second party on the right. That is worrying. Like, that is worrying. So whilst it does benefit us in the short term for this to happen, long term, I do worry about the implications of Restore Britain's growth. I do genuinely worry about that. It's interesting because we're seeing Reform employ a lot of the same tactics that the Tories did against them in 2024, which was basically to say, Reform can't win here, vote for us, because otherwise you'll get Labour, which, obviously to a certain extent, you could argue they were right. However, obviously, Reform can't really do that now, because obviously Restore could just say, well, that's what the Tories said, and look at where the Tories are now. Reform at least tries to present itself as a respectable party. Restore didn't even bother with that. Restore are completely mask off. I mean, Reform are pretty mask off, but Restore are just like the ultimate, kind of distillation of what Reform are, but like to an even larger extent. They, like I said, funded by Elon Musk and stuff, which I think this video goes on to basically
poll turns out to be accurate, it means the result of arguably the most important by-election in modern history wasn't decided by Andy Burnham or Nigel Farage, but by a party many people haven't even heard of until recently. So, how did we get here, and what does it mean for the future of British politics? Here's what you need to know. First, we need to zoom out a bit, because who exactly are Restore Britain? They were founded by this guy, Rupert Law, the MP for Great Yarmouth and, until recently, a Reform MP. Or at least he was until a very public spat with Nigel Farage in early 2025, where he was suspended from the party over bullying allegations.
It's amazing how little of a coalition they can keep together, even with like what I think it was 7 MPs at the time, maybe less. 5 maybe, was it? I can't remember. It's fluctuated a lot because Murdoch is also gone and a couple have joined. But it's amazing how much infighting there already was among so few MPs. And it's always funny to me because like the concept of infighting is largely just portrayed as a left-wing problem, when the reality is the right have just as bad problems with infighting as the left seem to half the time. People who vote Restore might not bother to vote otherwise. This is the thing. This is the thing, and this is why I say it's untested, and it's hard to really know how Restore are going to do. Obviously, this poll that we're looking at here puts them on about 7%. I've seen other polls putting them up as high as like sort of the mid-teens, which would be really, you know, just unprecedented for a party this young. To achieve, you know, that would even outpace Reform, really. You know, Reform, if you include the Brexit Party, took a very long time to get to anywhere close to that. You know, obviously, and even then, that had the groundwork of basically being a sequel to UKIP. So it would be kind of unprecedented for a new party to do that well. We just don't know. I will say, obviously, at the general election and in most by-elections, Reform tend to be overestimated. So there is a chance the same could happen with Restore as well. And I think that's why my ultimate kind of prediction for this by-election is probably going to be, I do think it'll be close, but I think Labour will win by slightly more than expected. Maybe it'll be a case of I think it's possible that even the combined Reform Restore vote doesn't get them to the Labour vote. Maybe close, but I don't think, I think one of the key reasons why Reform are probably going to do worse is obviously the Restore factor, but also the fact that they have, what am I trying to say? The fact that they've picked a candidate who is terrible, in my opinion. And, you know, we've covered Robert Kenyon in depth on this channel before, at many, many occasions. I genuinely think he's one of the worst candidates I've ever seen stand in a by-election. Yeah, I'm not sure when voting starts. I did see a notification from Politics UK, so I might quickly just bring that up. 1 second. If I go back here a second. Sorry, I'm still a relative novice when it comes to... That's the wrong angle. Wrong angle. Oh my god, there we go. That's the politics angle. You can tell I'm still getting used to all my new tech in here. Sorry about that. So yeah, apparently it should have already started, according to someone in chat. Let's have a look. I did see a tweet from Politics UK that I thought was interesting. Here it is. Yeah, polls close at 10, so polls closed about 24 minutes ago. The feelings inside Labour and Reform as polls close in the Makerfield by-election. Labour, we're feeling very good, but knew this would be a tough fight. Reform UK, we feel very good. Our vote has turned out. We'll get our highest ever by-election percentage. Yeah, interesting response here by someone. That shelf seemed nice, thank you. Sounds like Reform are already getting their excuses in, saying we'll get our highest ever by-election percentage. Yeah, I think this is true. I think if Reform lose, this will be the spin that they put on it. But look at the size of our percentage of the vote if they lose. It'll be that, and it'll also be the blame will go on to Restore, because Farage has already said it. Which brings me on, we might come back to that ITV video in a second, but I really want to cover this video from the Telegraph, which is Farage being interviewed on Rupert Lowe, and he basically says that if Reform loses, he puts it squarely at the feet of Rupert Lowe. And I think this is where you can tell Reform is starting to get a little bit tetchy, and Farage is starting to get a bit tetchy over the prospect of them potentially not winning this by-election. Let's take a listen to this.
how's this looking? We spoke before about Rupert Lowe, and you told Tim and I it's a protest vote. They'll never get above 1%. One poll has put them on 7% in that constituency.
Yeah.
Is Rupert Lowe going to cost you this seat?
Well, I'd be a seller at 7, I have to tell you. I really would be a seller at 7. We will see. I mean, let us just say, in a hypothetical scenario, that the difference between us and Burnham was less than the vote that Restore get, I don't think he'd be forgiven for doing it. But he doesn't care. He doesn't. It's all about vengeance. He just doesn't care. He's not interested. It's a nihilist campaign. But I understand why voters. I mean, because of what's happening with Elon, people on their social media feeds are seeing this Restore stuff the whole time, and they're attracted to it. And I understand why they are, but I very much say
it is kind of nice to see him get a taste of his own medicine. I must admit, there is a level of catharsis in him saying, "Look at Elon pushing all this Restore stuff. That's why they're all attracted to it." As if you weren't angling to be the beneficiary of that just a few months ago. There was a meeting with him not so long ago, but obviously Elon Musk fell out with Farage famously over him not supporting Tommy Robinson. So it's kind of funny watching him be annoyed at Restore effectively getting exactly what Farage wanted. It's kind of nice to see him get a taste of his own medicine. Going to repeat my "I thought wanted to deport Kenyans" comment. That was you. That was a very good comment. That had me chuckling for a while, so well done. That was very good. But yes, no, like, it's very funny watching them basically angle the same kind of thing here of like, oh my God, can you believe Elon Musk is manipulating the algorithm in their favor? That should have been me.
With what I had to say to you previously, that this will not last.
But if Reform loses a 65% Leave seat with a 97% white majority, then the country might turn around and say, well, if you can't beat Burnham here, where can you?
I think you find that we're going to get our highest percentage we've ever had in a by-election.
So yeah, I think we're starting to see the party line come out here. Yeah, I think we're starting to see the party line come out here of, even if they lose, but we got such a high percentage of the vote. I think that is going to be, I think we're starting to see, I think, it's funny, watching their comments is making me more confident that they're going to lose on the basis of how they're talking about it. Because confident parties don't say, I think we're going to get our highest percentage of the vote. They say, I think we're going to win.
As Reform, whether it's enough, we'll have to wait and see. And Burnham enjoys one advantage. And I hadn't thought about this before. When Boris Johnson was mayor of London, everyone loved him. And then he, storms to victory and suddenly people don't love him. Andy Burnham is popular. Why? Because mayors of big cities are predominantly civic, not political roles. They get to do the good stuff. They get to cut the ribbons. They get to open new buildings funded by...
I wouldn't say that's quite true. Burnham did do a number of things that were, I guess, political, if you like. And he's popular for several of the decisions he made. He's not just popular because he's a nice guy, from my understanding. He's popular, and obviously I'm not from Manchester, so if anyone is from Manchester in my chat wants to confirm, he's popular from what I understand because he actually did stuff there, like bringing the buses back under public ownership and capping fares at £2. Stuff like that is actually stuff that people appreciate him doing. So it isn't just a case of personality. The Daily Mail did a hatchet job on Restore very recently. Clearly they're worried about the right-wing split. I mean, yeah, this is true. And I mean, it's also worth pointing out that for a long time, you'll notice that GB News were very reluctant to cover Restore. And I think that's because GB News is effectively a Reform UK outfit, essentially.
Taxpayer money. They look like local champions and heroes. So it's very, very interesting that former mayors can be popular. I honestly would say to you, if the Labour Party had put up anybody else, we'd have won it comfortably.
I think that may be true, but that doesn't matter now. So yeah, I think you can see Reform are getting increasingly annoyed by Restore as a presence. And like I say, my main thing is it's just kind of funny watching the same thing happen to Reform that they did to other parties. You know, like basically Farage's whole history of politics is essentially him dragging the Tories further and further to the right and basically squeezing their vote. And now it's happening to them, and I can't help but find that kind of funny, even if I do worry about the larger implications of such a shift. But listen, guys, feel free to like the stream if you're enjoying it. Thank you very much for tuning in. We've got a couple of new updates from Politics UK, so I'm going to get them up now. Oh, it was just one update. I apologise. Andy Burnham allies say he is preparing to present Starmer with a list of over 80 MPs backing his leadership bid to convince him to resign without a contest. Oh, okay. I mean, to be honest, at this point for Starmer, that's a very interesting thing I hadn't considered. The idea of like the idea of him basically leaving without a contest because Burnham has the support. I think that would be the more dignified way for Starmer to leave at this stage. But honestly, I don't know whether they would. Someone says here, are you going to address the fact that you posted a video earlier criticising a woman for raising issues of domestic violence and the current lack of a solution? Not really. I stand by everything I said in that video. Like, she raised an important point, but she basically said that the onus was on a football player or football players to stop domestic violence. She didn't raise any significant ideas in order to how to solve an issue, basically acting like it was an unstoppable force of nature rather than something you can actually stop with political will, and actually encouraging the abusers not to do the abuse rather than, you know, saying it's the football's fault, largely because I think she didn't want to upset voters. He wasn't criticising a woman for raising domestic violence, so stop being disingenuous. Yes, that's true. That's exactly what I was going for, and everyone with the brain knows that's what I was going for. I want to be in the room when he hands Starmer the list, the drama. Yes, no, that would be funny. I imagine it would be quite a bit like, I don't know, I can almost imagine it sort of being like a kind of... I do think if Burnham wins this, it will effectively be a coronation for him. I don't see how Starmer really clings on, especially with the last couple of weeks as well. Like, there's been more resignations recently as well. I just don't see a scenario. I mean, he might try and fight a contest, but I think if he fights a contest, if Starmer was fighting a contest and it was him and Streeting, there's a chance he could win. But against Burnham, I don't think he stands a chance. I really, really don't. I think it is going to be curtains for Kia, if you like. Someone should use that as a newspaper headline. No, he shouldn't leave. There should be a contest. It would give him a sense of legitimacy. I can see the argument for that, because, yeah, you don't want to repeat the Kamala Harris thing of you basically just anoint a successor, and then they aren't seen as legitimate by, like, voters and by, like, the electorate. And that is a very reasonable point. My only sort of counter to that would be the longer the Labour leadership contest is dragged out, the more dysfunctional this Labour government already looks. You know, the more dysfunctional this already dysfunctional looking Labour government looks. So I can see both arguments for that. Starmer will become a pop star after politics. Burnham won't be progressive enough. Final nail in Labour's coffin. That is my concern, is that I don't want Burnham to just be Starmer, but with a northern accent. And I do have concerns about that, because he has said he would maintain several of the Starmer Project's policies, like a lot of their physical rules and stances on immigration. Also, surprised I never saw a headline saying it's Makerfield or Breakerfield. That's a good one. They should have done that. Yeah, they should have us writing the newspaper headlines. I'm sorry, but I don't accept that she raised the fact that praying the footballers win is the only solution we currently have. It was a very similar video to those that launched the Me Too movement. I really just don't understand what you're trying to get at here. I really don't understand what your goal is. Like, I wasn't having a go at a woman for raising domestic violence. I was having a go at the ideological kind of sort of concept of that not being something that could be solvable through political means, and basically just saying that, you know, it's just a force of nature, so let's just hope England keep winning. Like, no, I don't think that is the right message, and I will continue to say so. I'm waiting for the Doctor Who YouTube channel to post Keir Starmer regenerates Keir Starmer to Andy Burnham. I used to do a lot of those back in the day, a lot of those edits. I think the last one I did was Boris Johnson to Liz Truss, but then I couldn't be bothered to make another one that was Liz Truss to Rishi Sunak, because it just felt like there were too many going on. The most lenient thing you can say about Pochin's comments is that she didn't address domestic violence as the subject, and anything can be done. She is mentioning it as bad, but via footy wins. Yeah, it's just weird messaging. Even in the most lenient sort of like way you could characterize it, it's just incredibly strange messaging. So when Keir was campaigning, everyone told me that he's just saying stuff to get elected. Don't worry, he'll skew left. Burnham has had some really disappointing answers about trans folk. I agree. Like, this is my worry. Is obviously I completely get the concern with Burnham basically just being another Starmer. I completely get it, and it's a worry I have too. That is the main worry I have with him as well. At the moment, though, I'm kind of just, my ultimate goal and my ultimate desire is to avoid a reform UK government, because let's be honest. I keep going back to the wrong one. Bloody hell. I'm all over the place today. It looks so weird. Anyway, the problem, my ultimate goal is to avoid a reform UK government, because I genuinely believe a reform UK government would be the worst thing that could happen to this country. And the worst thing that could happen, you know, to every community, especially the trans community. I guess Restore would technically be worse, but I don't think that's likely at the moment. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't see a scenario where any other party has a chance of beating Reform on their own. I think it's possible that the Greens could maybe form coalition with Reform. I think it's possible that Labour could form a coalition with the Greens, like especially with Burnham at the helm. But I don't think the Greens are in a position to win an election on their own merits yet. Maybe that could happen in the future, but I don't see it happening yet. Really, the only way I see, you know, us avoiding a reform government is if Labour put in a somewhat decent showing, and the only way I can really see that happening is with Andy Burnham at the helm. He's the only popular figure they have. So I am definitely not 100% like, yay, I love Andy Burnham, he's perfect. I'm also like, I'm trying to be pragmatic in the sense of, yeah. So yes, obviously reform catastrophic, but I'm old and pretty tired of folks saying, buy this magazine or I shoot this dog. No, I get it. Listen, I completely get feeling disenfranchised with the whole thing and feeling like I'm sick of voting for the lesser evil. I do understand it. I'm just very worried at the prospect of reform winning, and my kind of like ultimate aim is to avoid that by any means. Also, let me know what you guys think of the Cardiff Bay sunset picture. I really quite like it. That's been a recent addition to the background of the politics videos. Let me get up the next thing I wanted to cover. So there was a spread of results posted by someone from, I believe, Ipsos. Summary of Makerfield constituency polling here. Labour Burnham lead, average 5 to 10 points-ish. Would hesitate to say Burnham has this in the bag. Clear favourite based on available data, but this is a very reform-friendly seat, as we saw in that clip. I think 65% leave. It's a 65% leave seat, and they did very well even in 2024 when Labour won a landslide. It's worth saying as well. And some signs have his ratings having dipped this week, plus polls we have are of 500 people each time, so obviously, you know, grain of salt and stuff. Hunches that it will be close, but truth is a small polling miss either way could mean a reform win or a Burnham blowout. I think national situation makes a close run thing more likely, but maybe the Burnham brand conquers all. We will find out in a few hours. Will you cover the Scottish by-elections or just Makerfield? Love the Cardiff Bay sunset picture, by the way. I think I will cover them tomorrow once I do the result, because I'm probably not going to stay up for the entire result of Makerfield, but I will probably bundle it in with my video covering Makerfield as well. I think Burnham said, I could be wrong, but if there was if like he were to win an election, he would run on a PR manifesto, but he basically says that he doesn't want to introduce it without winning a mandate for it, which I do think is somewhat understandable in all fairness. I think that's somewhat understandable, you know, because that's not something they ran on in 2024. I think PR ultimately is needed, though, for the UK moving forward. Oh, okay. Wait, so I'm not sure who this estimate is from. But it's got Labour 47%, up 1. Reform 39%, up 8, but obviously 8 points off Labour. Restore on 7%, so even if you combine the Restore Reform vote, it would still leave them 1% behind, but very close margin of error stuff. Greens on 3%, Conservatives on 2%. It's amazing to me that the Conservatives might lose their deposit. Like, I don't think we talk enough about how, like, insane that is. I used to think PR would keep the nutters out. Now I think it would probably make Labour actually court the left instead of wobbly Tories. No, I agree. I honestly agree. I think that's true. I think what you see in a lot of our first past the post system is effectively, because the left-wing vote has always been so split, it just constantly means right-wing governments even when the majority of the country don't vote for them. So I think PR would be in our best interest. I simply don't understand why Andy Keir cannot determine by trial by combat. Now that I would like to watch. My money would be on Burnham because, you know, he's more northern, and I think they've got more of a fighting spirit in them. That would be my bet. This is an Andy Burnham post here. A huge thanks to the people of Makerfield constituency for your patience and good humour over the last 5 weeks. My thanks too to the many volunteers who came up to support my campaign. We ran a very positive one and can be proud of it. PR is good at moderating extremism. I agree. I mean, one of the things I do think about reform, and I've said this before, I don't see a reality where reform get like a majority, even under first past the post. Ooh, there's been a new Politics UK tweet. So they're a very good one. I've got notifications on for them just because they always get like the quotes out first. I know that like there's some controversy over like who potentially runs them. I'm not sure, but Reform UK MP Sarah Pochin says Restore Britain would be committing utter betrayal of the country if it keeps splitting the right-wing vote. So yeah, this is the message that they are going for. They are really, really, really going for this Restore are splitting the right-wing vote, and they are betraying the country, and they're going to betray us if they keep standing. So Reform are really, really not happy about Restore's presence here, and it's understandable why. But again, I just can't help but find it somewhat funny that the exact same thing is happening to Restore, is happening to Reform that Reform did to the Tories. I just think that is kind of hilarious in its own way. And I don't really think Farage could be, I mean, he is annoyed at it, but I almost don't think he really can be. Increasingly find Burnham a bit patronising. I'm not convinced or seeing this apparent charisma. I get that. I think he's more charismatic than any other Labour MP at the moment, but that's also like saying he's the most, you know, charismatic sort of bit of cheese. Like it's not a particularly charismatic cabinet generally, but I do think maybe a little bit of charisma might help. But I do agree, it's not like he's, you know, he's not Sylvester Stallone or anything over here. Lovely to see the right-wing vote split for a change. Yeah, that's my thing. I'm very happy with that. I'll be interested to see what I'd love to see someone do. I think we did this before. When the result comes out, I hope someone does a poll with, if we were to put that vote share for Restore in a national context, how many seats it would deprive Reform UK of in a general election context. That I'd be very interested to see, because that could be the difference between, you know, Reform largest party and potentially Labour clinging on, especially if it was with Burnham. Tactical voting will go off the scale at the 2029 general election. I agree. I think it's gonna. The next general election is guaranteed to be weird, and my current feeling right now is that it's almost guaranteed to be a hung parliament. Stallone entering Makerfield contest would be a game changer. True. Layla Cunningham also did a clip again repeating the exact same point that we just heard from Sarah Pochin.
5 hours left. Make sure you vote for Rob.
This was a few hours ago, obviously.
Two-horse race. Only Rob can beat Labour here. Don't forget your ID.
So yeah, they are really hammering in this. It's a two-horse race. It's us or it's Reform. Now, the trouble is, again, for a lot of the people voting Restore, they don't care. They don't like Reform. So I don't think this is going to work. And I don't think telling them that they're traitors is going to help either. I think, personally, it'll probably just bolster a lot of Restore's support. Like, a lot of Restore supporters are specifically anti-Farage. That's why Restore exists. Is Stallone a Trump supporter? I didn't know that. That's unfortunate. I think Burnham would have been the man post-Cameron. I don't think he's got what it takes to meet the moment. Probably the best Labour has, though. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think to be fair, most Labour I think Starmer might have been fine in a post-Cameron world. Maybe if Brexit never happened. Not now, and it's probably the same for Burnham, but I think he is the best shot. My prediction has always been Lab Lib, Confidence and Supply, possibly formal coalition. Yeah, I think that's very possible. It's funny, isn't it? We very rarely talk about the Lib Dems, but that's because they very rarely do anything worth talking about. So there you go. Make of that what you will. I did see a very funny tweet earlier, which was this one, which I wanted to highlight to you guys, which is, if Andy Burnham wins the Makerfield by-election today, then the election has definitely been rigged. There is no way people are voting for satanic, I don't even think I can say that on stream, child rappers. And if they are, they need deported, and their phones and laptops need to be checked. So there you go. It's all been rigged. Curse Trump and his impact on global politics. Every result people don't like is rigged now. Happened with Gorton and Denton. It's probably going to happen with Makerfield. I even remember people trying it at the Welsh national election as well. How bad do you think Starmer and Labour have actually been, and how much is just general dissatisfaction with government? I think there have been some good things that they've done, but they created a ton of conflict for themselves where they didn't need to, and that has really stuck with people. Like the decision to cut winter fuel and the considered decision to keep the 2-child benefit cap. Yes, those two things were reversed, but they still spent the huge amounts of political capital in keeping them around, or keeping them as they were, which costs, or in winter fuel's case, reducing it, I should say. So I think that's really stuck around. And even when they do good things, they're terrible at communicating it. I think as well, they marketed themselves very much as a competent party after years of Tory incompetence, and the fact that obviously you've had things like the Mandelson scandal and all of this stuff. It does just kind of add to they're all the same kind of sort of argument, which I don't know whether I fully agree with. I don't think Labour are as corrupt, but it's not really a sort of achievement, If you got rid of all the votes for all the other parties, Reform would win, probably. Well, I remember Labour saying that after Gorton and Denton, though. It's funny you should say that, because I do remember someone from Labour, I think it was the Transport Secretary at the time, said, well, if you had the Green and Labour vote together, we won. It's like, well, that's not how it works. This government is the most authoritarian of my life. That's another thing. I really don't like what they've been doing with, obviously, digital ID, and social media restrictions. Obviously, I agree there needs to be social media regulation more than there is currently, but I don't agree that a blanket ban on 16s and under is the solution. I know that's controversial. I know some people like it. But I think that the negative impacts of that have not been thought through. There are a lot of people who are socially isolated, very alone, can't go very far, particularly disabled people who rely on that for communication. You know, there are kids out there who, you know, maybe like are in abusive homes who see social media as kind of an escape from that. So I'm very mixed on that. I agree that there should be more regulation of social media. I'm not sure whether a blanket ban is the correct solution, in my opinion. Hey Matt, how are you? I'm good, thank you. Yeah, how are you feeling about everything going on? But yeah, I thought this post was very funny. See what BBC's latest updates are saying. Is there a clip of votes being counted? I always like to look at like the frantic vote counts, but I imagine maybe there's not as much TV coverage of that because it's a one-off by-election rather than a general election. In fact, let me just see if there is, out of curiosity. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go onto here. I keep pressing the wrong one. Oh, it's all going wrong. You're breaking the illusion. Hang on. Let's see if there is. Because last I checked, there wasn't really a running coverage of Makerfield. But maybe there is.
Let's go through the roof.
Okay, there is.
So
okay.
Boys keep winning, but Women's Aid
have
criticised the comments.
Oh my God!
Do you want to refresh them all?
Oh, they're actually talking about Sarah Pochin's thing that I covered today. So let's actually have a look at that. Okay, cool. Newsnight is covering it. Good. Hang on, let me go over here. Okay, can you see that? Hopefully you can. I'm gonna go back a couple of seconds. So exciting cinematography. Yeah, call me Michael Bay. Let's have a look. Is it gonna work? Doesn't look like it is. Ooh.
Football results to domestic violence against women. England won the football last night. Thank goodness they did, you said, because on the occasion that England lose their football matches, the incidences of domestic violence go through the roof. So boys keep winning. But Women's Aid have criticised the comments. Do you want to refresh them all?
It's very laggy, unfortunately.
The phrases these days for changing something that's said.
Look, the point I was making is that I know this subject and area very well. I worked in the courts for 20 years dealing with domestic violence, victims and perpetrators. And I do know it's a fact that the police call-out rates absolutely spiral on occasions, big national occasions where there might be disappointment. And clearly, England losing a football match is one of those occasions.
Thing is, I don't think no one was disagreeing with that, though. No one was disagreeing with the fact that it goes up. We were disagreeing with the fact that I'm going to pause it. Why can't I pause it?
Then it is worth raising the issue.
The reason I took issue with it is because you didn't actually present a solution. You just went, I hope the footballers win. Shame we can't do anything about it when you could.
This issue for no other reason that if people are aware of it and aware of the spike
those men will be far more likely to vote reform. That is true.
Football night events, then maybe friends will look out for these people. Maybe neighbours, family members who know that this is going on will invite the woman to come and stay with them for the evening. Whatever it takes, we need to keep women safe.
Okay, thank you for addressing all of these matters with us at a very big evening, Sarah Pochin in Makerfield. Thank you very much. Now, patiently, here is The Guardian's Jess. Can we take you back to the David Blunkett remarks? Does that strike you as a significant intervention?
I thought it was quite extraordinary how he presented with both scenarios, both Andy Burnham winning and Andy Burnham losing. He seems to be saying that Keir Starmer can't stay on as Prime Minister in either of those scenarios.
Oh, that's interesting. So basically they're saying that regardless, Starmer's probably not looking great. Obviously, it looks like Burnham would probably accelerate it if that was the case, though. Interesting stuff. Very, very interesting. Yeah, if there's any interesting stuff going on the BBC counts, I'll keep an eye on that. I might put that in the background just to see I'll keep it on mute though, so you guys aren't hearing it when I'm not showing it on screen. But I'm going to refresh that and keep it on in the background in case we need to return to it, because you never know. Oh, in fact, are they doing counting stuff now?
But I wonder if we just go back to the warning. David Blunkett is a man who should be listened to rather than ignored, Luke. He's saying Andy Burnham, if he wins, should not go too precipitously against the Prime Minister. That's what he's just said. Do you agree?
Well, I think Andy's been working his socks off. He's been speaking to hundreds and over 1,000 undecided voters the last few weeks. This weekend, I'm sure he's just wanting to play a little bit, catch up with his family. And actually, if I'm honest, I stepped back as a ministerial aide. I think this weekend, the Prime Minister's got to read the room, smell the coffee, listen to how Andy's rejuvenated the Labour Party in this corner of the world, and come to his own reflections. I think the Prime...
Interesting. I think one of the interesting things about Burnham is he is from the north, which I know is obvious, but I think it addresses one of the issues that Labour are currently having. Bloody hell, why do I keep doing it? That essentially, Labour as it currently exists is very like London-based and London-centric, and basically prioritises the south and London specifically. Having a northern leader in there who is a big believer in devolution and further devolution might not only help in northern parts of the country where Labour are particularly vulnerable to reform, but also in the devolved nations, as in Scotland and Wales, where they have done badly as well. Mayor goes to a new vote, I think, either way. Oh, I thought he could carry on if he lost, but maybe I'm wrong on that. I'm not sure. I assumed he could carry on. Less laggy when you don't do full screen. Okay, I'll bear that in mind. Because it's really laggy. Because I think it's because I'm streaming at the same time. It doesn't like it. It's not a fan. I'm hoping we start to see some kind of, kind of indications soon of who's looking likely to win. Okay, this is from Dan Hodges, commentator for Mail on Sunday. Let's have a look what he says. Boop. Polls have closed in Makerfield. Spent the day there. My entirely unscientific predictions. Andy Burnham will win. It will not be quite as close as some people think. Restore have been squeezed a little, but will still be close to double figures. Interesting. I think this is pretty much what I think is going to happen, to be honest. I wasn't in Makerfield, so I can't, I don't have the ground experience, but from everything I was seeing, I think Reform's performance might be overestimated a little bit. Restore might be squeezed by the whole, Reform messaging, but still could do well considering their size. And Burnham will obviously win. I am curious of Nathan's opinion, because I know Nathan, and I don't mean this in any way to like single you out, but I know you were a big sort of supporter of like this Labour government and Starmer, so I was curious to see like what was the thing that made you change your opinion of him, because I'm just of the opinion now that he is basically electoral kryptonite, and I think if Labour want any chance of kind of electoral recovery, I think Burnham is really their only shot at it. Yeah, I thought he could stay on, so I'm glad someone clarified that, because I thought that was the case. By the way, guys, if you haven't already, feel free to like the stream, subscribe if you're new. There's 50 of you watching, which is lovely to see. On such a new channel still, I'm really, really appreciative of the support. Also, if you really want to help out, we've got channel memberships and super chats. I'm doing my look. I don't get, you don't get ad breaks. Well, actually, I think ads do probably play on this. I don't know. But you don't get like the traditional ad breaks. So I'm doing my little plug there. But carrying on. Oh, here we go. Aaron Bastani. Voting closed in Makerfield 10 minutes ago. A senior Labour source thinks Burnham has won it by a fair whack. Green activist told me everyone had an Andy Burnham story. He is just very popular in this part of the world, but we will know soon. Okay, so that's interesting. So another person here saying that they think Labour have won it or Burnham has won it by a fair whack, depending on how you want to quantify it. Has there been any estimate on percentage turnout? Not that I've seen. I have been looking. I would imagine a high turnout, like historically high for a by-election, most certainly. The Mandelson thing killed Starmer. Who would have thought hiring someone with a history of being dodgy would turn out to be dodgy? I mean, yeah, that's just true. That's just accurate. That's just completely accurate. I still will never understand the decision to appoint Mandelson. Well, I think the logic was he was a friend of Epstein and Trump was a friend of Epstein, so let's get them to be together and they'll like each other. I honestly think that was the logic, which is just insane to think about, but I honestly do think that's the... Starmer is making the wrong decisions, mate. Fair enough. I'm only asking because I was curious, because I agree with you. But was there any specific decision that Starmer made that made you kind of go, I'm not really sure about this? I've met Andy Burnham twice at professional events. He seemed like a good egg. I can't say he would turn his back on people like Starmer did, but I trust him more than anyone else in politics. Okay, interesting. Yeah, he does seem more trustworthy. The thing is, I think the reason why I'm more willing to give him a bit of benefit of the doubt is that he does have a history of actually... I keep doing the wrong one. Of actually helping people in Manchester. It's because you know what it is? My Stream Deck's not working. I'm going to have a little bit of a technical poke around and see if I can fix that. Burnham should treat Starmer the same way Starmer treated Corbyn. Unfortunately, I doubt it will happen because Starmer was the one that won the mandate and that he will still have quite a few supporters in the party, but that would be funny. Give me 1 sec. I'm just going to have a little bit of a technical poke around to see if I can stop that from happening. There we go. I fixed it. I fixed the problem. Yeah, it's because my Stream Decks weren't responding. So where I controlled my my scenes, I was having to do it manually. So that's why it kept buggering it up. So apologies for that. I'm back. Really enjoying the show. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. And Nathan says, social media ban and not going closer to the EU. Do you know what? I agree on both of those, actually. See, we don't actually disagree on that much. That's quite funny. Yeah, what are we looking at in terms of, is there anything good recently? Should we take a look at what Reform have been saying? Because I do think Farage, I think Maximilian Robespierre, or Max, I should say, has, it's so funny to say his full YouTube name because it does feel like I'm quoting the historical figure. But he did a video talking about how low energy Farage seemed to be in his campaign videos, and I do agree. Let me see where was his video that I saw today? Me personally, he needs to step down now. I am inclined to agree, but I do understand. I can't remember whose point it was, but if there isn't a contest, you do run the risk of it being like a Biden-Kamala situation where the public don't treat them as the legitimate kind of successor. You do risk that, so I get that argument, but I also think at this point a transition might also just be more dignified at this point rather than a contest. I don't know. I'm a bit in the mixed on that. In fact, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put it to a poll. In fact, I can do that here. Hang on. I'm going to do a poll. do a poll. What would you prefer? And I'm going to put prefer. I'm going to put leadership contest. Or transition. I'll just put transition, meaning there isn't a contest and they sort of just, you know, do like an orderly transition. I'm curious to see what you guys think, so I'll put that in there. Start the poll. All right, we'll see how that goes. Just curious, have you based your politics videos on the Maximilian Robespierre, similar to your Doctor Who style or other political content careers? Yeah, I mean, it's partly inspired by like my own Doctor Who channel style. Partly also, Maximilian was also an inspiration. I'd also say, to be fair, Jimmy the Giant, to a certain extent, was also a bit of an inspiration as well. Ooh, it's looking pretty tight in the poll. 9 votes have been conducted. 50-50, well, 10 votes. It's now gone back to 50-50. Farage has a history of quitting things. He is unserious and will bounce. I think that could happen. One thing I do think is that I think that I don't know how many chances Farage realistically has. Like, see if Reform don't win the 2029 election. I almost don't see him running like again after that, if you know what I mean. Contest, then a GE. Interesting. See, I would wait maybe a year to do a GE. I'd maybe do a GE earlier, but maybe like, I don't know, do a year, maybe basically do like the Mark Carney strat of come in, do a little bit, do some changes, and then do a GE maybe once you've kind of settled in. I prefer things more gentlemanly, but Starmer is so popular, and I think Burnham needs to oust him aggressively to grab that momentum. Interesting. Well, we've just about had, I'll wait for the 20th vote to come in, but it's looking like a pretty decisive... See, democracy's going on in this chat as well, not just in Makerfield. The new leader has to have time to turn things around before a GE. That's my kind of thing. I think maybe slightly early. Okay, so 20 votes have come in. I'm going to end the poll there, with 20 of you having voted. 65% said leadership contest, and then 35% of you said transition. Honestly, I could kind of see the arguments for both, and I'm not quite convinced which one I would go with, to be honest. I think there's merits to both. Yeah, I think it's also possible that Starmer just wouldn't stand down. Like, point blank, he'd likely refuse. I'm just seeing if there's anything particularly strong. Do you think Andy Burnham would be a good Prime Minister? Personally, I think he would be better than Starmer. I think he's the best option Labour currently have. I think he's probably got more charisma. I think he has the appeal, as I said, of being liked up north, which I think Labour are in need of, given how vulnerable they are to reform in the north. I think he has a decent track record as mayor, although it's worth saying again that, like, that's not directly transferable. He needs to be bold there. That's the thing. Like, he can't afford to just fiddle around the edges. Who's your favourite for the next election if Burnham wins and loses? To be honest, if Burnham loses, I mean, I don't even know what happens then. But say if Burnham loses and we assume then that Starmer stays in, I think it will probably undoubtedly be a Reform, at least as largest party. Maybe not with majority, maybe a hung parliament, but I think they will be the largest party. With Burnham in place, it would still be tight, but I think there's a chance that Labour could just about beat them. 100%. Starmer is too arrogant. I feel closer to Andy as I'm from North Wales. I've heard good things when he was mayor. No, I agree. I think, as I said as well, with the devolved nation specifically, I think his emphasis on devolution could help them gain some ground in Scotland and Wales that they've really lost recently. Because historically, at least for Labour to win elections, they have to put in a decent showing, at the very least in Scotland. But also, you know, Wales has been a heartland for them. So obviously, while I am a Plaid Cymru voter, you know, it's in Labour's best interest to do a bit better in Wales if they want to maintain power. The main thing about Burnham's success as mayor, he was such a success under Tories. So with Westminster actively in opposition to his efforts, that's the thing. It'll be interesting to see what he would do with the levers of the state. You know what I mean? Like with the actual power to do it. But it would require him to be bold on it. It would require him to be bold on it and not fiddle around the edges. I am becoming less and less convinced Reform will win. I mean, I didn't think Reform would win at the start of this stream, but I think it's becoming less likely. But I still don't want to completely rule out that that could happen. Like, I make no mistake, I think that could still happen, and I don't want to completely, like, rule that out, you know? Like, I don't want to say, I think there's no chance Reform will, and there's an upset. I think that could happen. I don't think it will, but I'm not going to completely rule it out until we're sure. I do find it interesting. One of the underspoken about aspects of this by-election, like I said earlier, though, is just how badly the Tories are doing. Like 2%, not even getting their deposit back, would be very bad. Reform are scared of Andy. I think they are. I think in many ways Starmer has been a gift to Reform. I really, really do. I think. I mean, not to rephrase that old James O'Brien clip, but any other Labour leader would be 20 points ahead. If you know, you know. But genuinely, I think his unpopularity and inability to really connect with voters and like just constant like unpopular policies has been a gift to Reform. Because I said this before, but all Reform really have to do to win any form of popularity is go, hey, you know that thing you really don't like that Labour did, whether it's the social media ban, whether it's the ban on cigarettes for people born after 2008, whatever it is, we'll just not do that. And then they immediately get a ton of support because Labour have just been continuously shooting themselves in the foot for no political gain at all. And I think Burnham is smart enough to recognise that a lot of these policies just aren't popular. You know, digital ID was never popular. It wasn't popular when Blair tried it. It isn't popular now. I don't know why they keep going for it because it just doesn't hit with voters. It never has done. And I don't know what the obsession with it is. Just seeing if there's any big sort of updates. Not looking like too much at the moment. I am keeping an eye though. Oh, this is interesting. Apparently, they're up to 3,000 Labour campaigners that had descended upon Makerfield to campaign for Andy Burnham today, prompting fears among organisers that the hordes of activists may end up overwhelming voters. So that's interesting. They may have actually sent too many to Makerfield. I actually did see a quote from, I think it was Lewis Goodall, whereas someone basically be like, look, I'm voting Labour, but if you keep knocking on my door, I'm going to vote for someone else. So maybe they have been a bit too overzealous with their campaigning, potentially. Starmer bored me in his social media speech. It had no fire. No, I agree. I agree. The problem is, fundamentally, a modern leader of a country needs to be able to have that charisma. And I genuinely think it's a huge part of it, and Starmer just doesn't have it, you know, and that might seem shallow, but I do think it's just true. If you can't connect with people, you're not going to do well. You know, there's a reason why, obviously I'm not saying I liked him, by the way. I really didn't. But there's a reason why you still saw people saying how much they loved Boris back in the day, even when he was doing all the, like, bullshit he was doing. And that's because he was seen as funny and, like, sort of charismatic, which I don't really get it. I think he just came across as an idiot. But a lot of people did find him endearing in that sense. And so I think that did help. You know, it might sound, as I said, it might sound, you know, minimal, but it's really important in this day and age to have that bit of ability to communicate with the electorate and that charisma. And I think Burnham is the only one who really comes close. He's rushed into the social media ban just for a win, but I don't think it's popular enough for it to be a win. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, but for an easy win, you'd think he would do a policy that, like, the electorate is crying out for. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of one that the electorate would universally love. It's hard to know. Keep pubs open longer. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? There's, like, you'd think that there'd be a... That wouldn't be your first port of call if it was just about getting a win. Labour's NAF comms don't help either. No, they really don't. Labour's comms have been terrible. Genuinely just abysmal. The one good bit of campaign material I remember seeing from them was that one where it was just a woman in a pub reciting Reform UK lines, but that got banned. If Andy loses, then his political career is gone. I mean, he still gets to stay as mayor, so he'll still be mayor for a while. But yeah, it will sort of taint his rep a bit. Certainly. He's so tone deaf you can't have that in a leader. No, I agree. Social media ban is all, won't someone please think of the children to sneak in digital ID? That's exactly what it is. 100%. 100% that's what it is. It's not about the teenagers. It's not about the teenagers. It's about being able to monitor everyone else. That's exactly what it is. I mean, for God's sake as well, banning YouTube for 16-year-olds, but 16-year-olds could, like, vote. It doesn't make any sense to anyone. Nationalisation has strong support for the utilities, and at least in the polls, but of course Starmer has the reverse Midas touch, and it's a long-term measure rather than a short-term one. Popular, I don't know, legalise MJ, or is that still contentious broadly? I don't know. I think it would probably be contentious with, like, a rump of, like, older people in the country, and historically you do need the elderly vote in order to be somewhat popular in this country. As for, what was the other one you suggested? Wealth tax. Wealth tax would be good. I mean, that would be something I'd love for Burnham to do, but we'll see. Shame the government can't, you know, pass laws to force social media companies to moderate the monsters a bit. Exactly. It's almost like, you know, we did that before and it worked. Like, they literally, they had the solution to this recently when they basically told X, like, you can't just have an AI bot that puts pictures of people in their underwear. And they actually did have to restrict that feature as a result. So it's almost like if you put pressure on these companies, they are forced to back down on things rather than just blankingly banning it and making it difficult for everyone else's lives. But oh God, it just drives me up the wall. Drives me up the wall. Labour communications have always been bad. Journalist Stephen Blush once described how you could get a quote from Tories within minutes, but you'd be waiting 6 hours for Labour. Damn. Assuming he wins, how long will Burnham's honeymoon be if he has one? I reckon he will have a little bit of one because he is more popular. I don't know how long it'll last. The main thing will be just don't do an immediately unpopular policy like, cut winter fuel as soon as you get in. Be seen to be doing positive changes early, and that will help. But if you immediately come in and go, right, we're going to cut this, we're going to cut that, people are sick of cuts. That's the reality of it. If you start saying you're going to cut stuff, it's not going to work. People have done studies on why social media is bad for young people and recommended how to change to mitigate against the addictive aspects, but the government ban ignores all that. That's what I'm saying. Like, even if you look at the expert advice with it, the ban is not the solution most experts go with. They go for further moderation, which I'm in favour of, but banning isn't the solution. If Andy Burnham becomes a new Prime Minister, he needs a new cabinet. That's the difficult thing. Who does he keep? Who does he get rid of? I could see, like, Miliband sticking around. I don't see how Rachel Reeves could stick around, realistically. Wes Streeting, I don't really think, obviously, he's not the Health Secretary anymore either, but, like, I think he's completely opposed to, like, the Burnham project ideologically. Rayner, I think, could get a position again, especially after she was cleared of her charges, and she is quite close to Burnham anyway. Who else could they keep? I don't really know. Yeah, I could see Miliband and Rayner coming in, or staying in Miliband's case, Rayner coming back in. I know that, like, he did say he backed Mahmood's immigration policies, which I'm not sure I agree with, but I mean, that's a difficult one, because at the same time, a lot of the electorate do like it when immigration goes down, which I think is the wrong argument personally, but, like, I don't know if they're committed to fighting that anymore. Winner policy, Freddo for all. Reduce Freddos to 10p, yeah. Nationalise the Freddo. Who does Rayner back more, Andy or Starmer? I would say Andy, because she was one of the first ones to be against him being rejected by the NEC at Gorton and Denton. So I would say she would be more of a Burnham ally, potentially. A month of the same neo-lib stuff and Burnham and Labour at toast. Yeah, it has to be different. Yvette Cooper, I don't know. I don't know about that one. I know there was talk of... who was the old Transport Secretary who resigned? The first one that they brought in. Not Louise Haig, the one before that. Or was it Louise Haig? I'm not sure. I think we need to better regulate the internet. Rather than the full ban on the 16th. I agree. I completely agree. Nationalise the post office. I'd like to see that as well. That could be a big win as well, with obviously, the whole thing with the postmasters who's still very much in the public's conscious. Something like that would be a very, very popular move, I think, potentially. And Raiders from not far down the road. Well, I don't know whether you remember this, but I think we covered it. Back a while ago, there were talks of secret meetings going on between Rayner and Burnham. So I do think there's a chance that Rayner is the one who Rayner would help Burnham in that scenario, I think. Do you think Burnham will represent a fresh direction for Labour, or will it just be a fresh face with otherwise more of the same? I think it will be new in some ways, or better in some ways. Do I think it'll be enough? Hard to say. I'd like for it to be. Am I convinced yet? Not quite. I want to be. I want them to come in and really make some of the changes that need to be done. Am I convinced they will? I don't know. What also worries me is Labour see the rise of Reform Restore and think they need to go more centre-right, right-wing, when their downfall is exactly because of the shift from their traditional Labour values. I mean, yeah, that's what Blair was trying to get them to do, is actually Keir Starmer, the issue with your electoral prospects is that you're too left-wing, which is an insane thing to say about Keir Starmer of all people. But no, I completely agree. I don't think Burnham would take that lesson. I think Post is what water is the obvious one. Water's the obvious one that needs nationalising. Like, the fact that the water companies can rip us off so much is insane. Water's the obvious one, I would say. Rail was good, and I'm glad they've started doing that. Yeah, rail, mail, water, ironically, was the original promise of Starmer back in 2018 when he ran for leadership, 2019, around then. Also fixed the pricing on energy companies, immediate impact on bills. True, maybe put put a bigger cap on the prices they can charge. I think the energy ones are harder to wrangle, but if you could, that would be a great thing to do as well. You just need to be seen to be doing things to help people very early on and not be seen to be trying to like nickel and dime them at every opportunity. Louise Haig, that was the one I was thinking of, thank you. I could see maybe her being brought back in. What did she resign over again? I've forgotten. Oh, interesting. Reform UK MP Sarah Pochin, the same one we just covered, tells GB News the party will be very happy if they come a strong second. If we get a good strong turnout, we come a strong second, we'll be happy with our performance. Oh, the cope is starting to come out now. Yeah, I think they've lost. I think they've lost. This is not the sort of thing you start saying if it's looking like you're going to win. What do we do if Count Binface wins? Embrace our new overlord, frankly. Let him run the country. Losing her phone 10 years or something. 10 years before or something. I knew it was something like that. I couldn't quite remember. We need a prime minister who supports the creative industry. Yes, 100%. Actually put some funding into one of our biggest industries. It's a crime how underfunded the UK media industry is, especially considering how much economic prosperity it brings to the country. Insane that it doesn't get more funding. Genuinely insane. The fact that, and obviously many of you who follow me over from my Doctor Who channel will know, the fact that Doctor Who has to be made by an outside company is insane. Like, the BBC should have enough money to make it on their own. Like, they should. Especially with how much money that the UK gains from it. It's insane. Completely agree with that. Thing is, I know the BBC has its issues, but I fundamentally believe that it's better to have them than have a private, like, American-style TV networks where they all just spout bollocks like GB News. Imagine a UK where all the news channels were like GB News. Like, it'd be terrible. Hope Cat Binface beats Reform. That would make my year. That would be funny. That would be very funny. I agree, BBC has its issues, but the BBC is creative freedom. Not just creative freedom, but also, like, it's freedom from, like, these companies and billionaires that will do anything to push what they want. Like, you know, Murdoch has so much power already. Does Doctor Who perform better under Conservative or Labour governments? That's an interesting question. I mean, if I think about it, when it went off air, there was a Tory government the first time. When it's gone off air now, it's a Labour government. It came back under a Labour government. I guess its peak was in the 70s, which was, well, Labour for a lot of it, right? So my gut would say it does better under Labour historically, but I could be wrong. Like, it was at its peak in sort of mid to late New Labour years. So that's what my answer to that would be, I think. This is a very funny video. So I just saw a very funny video. I'm going to show it to you guys. Hang on. Let me get it up. It says, reform and restore just after Andy Burnham wins in the Makerfield by-election.
Will kill ya! You did it for me! You take back what you said, you bitch!
Yeah, I think this is probably what's going to happen. What are the BBC saying at the moment? Speaking of them. Oh, I paused it, apparently.
If you look here, you can see that of these 3 by-election areas, Gorton and Denton is the most diverse. So it shows that they're not exactly the same people who are living in these constituencies. And similarly here, graduates, the number of graduates in each constituency, they're pretty much broadly similar. We've got some more detail about these constituencies. Here, the first one, right over in the far corner, the number of households who are claiming universal credit. You can see there, Gorton and Denton has the highest compared to Makerfield and Runcorn and Helsby. It's just really picking out some of the differences between these constituencies. Homeowners, a high proportion of homeowners in Makerfield and in Runcorn and Helsby compared to Gorton and Denton. And the same with car owners. Makerfield, 82%, compared with 68% in Gorton and Denton,
this is very interesting. I didn't know many of these demographic differences.
What can we conclude from all of this? Why are we even looking at these kind of facts and stats? Well, it shows when we think back to the fact that Reform have done pretty well in the area that Makerfield falls under recently. It might be because of some of these factors. Their high support for Brexit.
Less uni graduates.
That's something that normally
That's
plays well when it comes to Reform UK's support. Of course, we know Nigel Farage's role in the EU referendum campaign. Got a lot of people who own their own homes there. And these are different constituencies from Gorton and Denton, where the Green Party did well and won that by-election with their plumber candidate, Hannah Spencer, just a few months ago. So it means here, really in contention, not so much the Green Party in this by-election race.
Oh, yeah, but I think, to be honest, the reason the Green Party aren't in contention is because everyone has consolidated. Everyone on the left has consolidated around Burnham. I think that's fair to say. Like, I'm subscribed to the, the Stop the Tories /Reform.vote thing. And, like, they have basically been saying, like, the tactical vote is Labour for this one. So I think a lot of the left-wing vote has consolidated around Labour. I don't think Labour would be doing as well with any other candidate, frankly. It's because it's Andy Burnham. Burnham wins, BBC. Anyway, here's an interview with Reform, very true. The scorn when she said plumber, lol, Christ. I did notice that. That was a bit odd. I'm glad I'm not the only one who thought that. I didn't want to say it, because I was like, maybe she just... I don't know, maybe she just said it a bit oddly, but, like, yeah, it did sound a bit odd.
Not sure it was me that got us into that situation, but me collectively, the collective we. Look, I think it is quite surreal. I think that it's fair enough to feel that way about it. The local elections, and funnily enough, a lot of my colleagues whose local elections last year had a similarly calamitous effect, although they were in the, less in the big urban areas. It seemed to have less of a hit home. Feel very much like they tried to be the canaries in the mine, and very little changed, or they didn't feel listened to. And then we end up at the local elections situation that we found ourselves in, which it's quite easy to forget now after all the political drama and calamity, and the sense of the unpopularity of, and I have to say, look, I can only speak for the doors I knocked in bits of the countries I went to, the unpopularity of the Prime Minister, and without wanting to blow the trumpet or make Nigel Farage feel any more arrogant than he already clearly does, the sense that the risk of reform is so great, and the Prime Minister is so unpopular. Those two things will make the Parliamentary Labour Party or the Labour Party more broadly really nervous about it's a great risk to us. I think the greatest risk to our country would be a reform win, and we have to do whatever it takes to stop that.
But if Andy Burnham doesn't win tonight, and we don't know, both sides saying it's too close to call, what on earth do you do then as a party?
That's a good question.
Well, look, I don't... contrary to popular belief, and tonight really seems, although there are two other by-elections elsewhere, seems like it's all about Andy Burnham. I don't think it is all about Andy Burnham and whether he wins tonight, actually. I think that the central thesis stays the same, that we have a very unpopular Prime Minister and a risk of reform, and that we have to head that up and do something about that.
whatever it is? So your friend Wes Streeting would
Look,
challenge Keir Starmer if this
whatever it is, actually. Personally, I really think that what I would like to see from a very dignified man, who the Prime Minister, is a recognition of that himself, the risk to the country of taking an unpopular leader into the next general election. And I would... Personally, I would really like to see him be the person who comes to that conclusion, because I think he deserves.
Interesting. So she's basically saying she hopes that Starmer steps down of his own accord, but I don't think he will. I don't see it.
Reminded us there are other by-elections. In a second, we're going to go to Aberdeen South and talk to my colleague Andrew Kerr there on the ground. But I just want to put that to you, Angela Smith, member of the Cabinet sitting there. Jess Phillips is... In her view, this has to be the moment that Keir Starmer himself decides to go, whether or not Burnham wins or loses.
I think they're old-time friends.
First of all, I think we want Andy Burnham to win. We're Labour people. As a Labour candidate standing in the by-election, of course, we want Andy to win. I have to say, I don't think Keir's getting enough credit for what he's done for the country and what he's done for the Labour Party. I've served...
Come on, man. Look, there's some things they've done that is good, but it's sort of like saying I don't think the arson's getting enough credit for the house fire. It's like, sure, you've done stuff, but like, let's be honest. Let's be honest here. Which Doctor would you pick to be Prime Minister? Actor or character? Because that depends. Actor, probably... Ooh. I don't know, actually. That's a good question. I've put money on Starmer taking us into the next year. I don't think there's any chance he'll step down voluntarily. Well, I wish you luck. I'm not convinced he will. I'm not convinced he'll step down voluntarily, but I think it might be a he's pushed out sort of scenario, if not voluntary. I think the most dignified thing for him to do would be to step down voluntarily, but like, I don't know whether he will. She has to say that. She's in the Cabinet. To be fair, I know, but it's like, come on. Who are you trying to fool here?
In government under 3 Labour Prime Ministers now. And everyone says, oh, it was so much easier than it wasn't. And I remember times when people said exactly the same about Tony Blair and about Gordon Brown. Oh, we're unpopular, we've got to change the leader.
Character, probably Capaldi or Eccleston. Maybe, yeah, I would say. As Prime Minister, yeah, one of those two.
And then things pick up. For me, I think what Keir has done for the Labour Party, he made us electable. That was a huge campaign to change from the days. Jess and I recall how difficult it was under Jeremy Corbyn. And people said he couldn't...
Oh, when he got more votes than Keir Starmer did at either election. Just saying. Just saying. Just saying.
Do it. They then said he couldn't win the election with Keir Starmer. Won a thumping majority, albeit from small majorities, but we won. And I think the thing that really makes a difference for people is how we deliver as a government, the difference you make to people's lives. And what I see in Keir is a real determination. That's what drives him. And at times, yes, Labour leaders are unpopular, but he has got a real commitment to seeing change in this country.
But isn't it more than that? Because you have historic unpopularity. His popularity sort of fell off a cliff almost as soon as you walked through the door. And there are people who are ministers in government saying
I hate it when I agree with Laura
Kunsberg. He can't change. The formula doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I think there's things we've made mistakes. No, I think we'd admit that. No one can say that as a new government coming in after 14 years in opposition, we've got everything right. We've made mistakes. But if
Labour
you're saying that
pushed to the back of the queue in Wales, you had appalling council losses this year, appalling council losses last year. It's not a few mistakes.
I have been here before.
Corbyn only got more votes than Starmer because Farage stood his candidates down. I'm not sure I agree. Because you got to think as well that, like, Starmer got less votes with a Tory party that had imploded. And Reform weren't really where they are now. So I'm not really sure I quite agree. Yeah, no, I can't stand Laura Kunsberg either, but she is right on that, at least. Like, really hate these blue Labour types. True, I do as well. I do as well. These are the people that need to not be in charge of the party going forward, basically. Oh, Sarah Pochin being challenged over Robert Kenyon's comments. Here we go. Let's have a look at this.
Flopping the focus really is on the individuals involved here. Andy Burnham, with potentially the accusations, he's already started flip-flopping a bit, you know, on waspy women, for example. Rob Kenyon, perhaps we'll get onto as well, the accusations about his social media history too. I mean, you know...
His sexist social media history, come on, say it like it is.
They're right in the spotlight, aren't they?
Yeah, and I mean, look, Rob Kenyon fought this seat in 2024. He has had the country's attention on him in this by-election, and there has been a number of past comments that he's made that have come up, that have drawn criticism, that have sparked controversy. And then also he is up against Andy Burnham, who has a big brand political name. And, you know, Rob Kenyon's fought this campaign saying, I'm not a career politician, but Andy Burnham's fought this campaign saying, I am a politician, a seasoned politician, and I can better represent you here in Makerfield. And they have gone toe-to-toe. And I think what's really interesting about this by-election, I'd like to ask both of you.
Yeah, that is Stangham Debonair, the one who lost to the Greens in, I know it was one of the Bristol seats. It was Carla Denya's now seat. And then she immediately got put in the House of Lords, which I hate that, by the way. When someone loses an election and they're like, that's an automatic ticket to the House of Lords for you. Like, not a fan of that. Because I think if the country says that they don't want someone, then they don't want them. Do you know what I mean? Like, no, don't put them automatically in the House of Lords. Like, no, that's not how that should work. If the country says no, they say no. Do you know what I mean? And I hate the House of Lords generally, but that's, you know, that's a wider thing.
I think there is sort of an acceptance here that if it wasn't Andy Burnham, it is likely that Reform, given the record, as I said in the May elections, I think Reform took 50% of the vote in the wards in Makerfield, that actually this would have been a Reform seat. And actually it's Andy Burnham's personal brand that could save it for Labour. I mean, Thangham, what do you think about that?
If Andy Burnham wasn't standing, there wouldn't be a by-election because Josh, the previous MP, stood aside so that Andy could be the candidate. So in a way, you know, that question doesn't arise. Certainly Andy's got a great brand, but the reason he's got a great brand is how hard he's worked for Manchester and previously for the neighbouring constituency seat of Lee. I think part of that, his former seat, is
I don't get why they always interview people who lose elections. You know what I mean? Like, it was always funny to me when it was like, obviously, even when you look at like Rest's politics, obviously, Alistair Campbell, for everything that we think about him, was successful. Rory Stewart was never successful. Like, he was an MP, sure, but he ran to be leader and lost. He ran part of the Remain campaign and lost. And then, like, we're supposed to be like, yes, I think he knows how to win an election. I'm not sure he does.
Seat. So his kids went to the local schools, he plays football at the local football place.
See, this is what I love to see, though. I love to see the big boxes with the people coming in. That's what I love to see.
He's a mayor of Greater Manchester, so I think, yes, he's got a great brand, great name recognition. I think what he also
Kenyon is worse than Pochin, because with Pochin, she's like, look, none of the Reform people are competent, but Kenyon's, the reason why Kenyon's so bad is that he also has done things that Reform voters don't even like for example, vote Remain. So even if you just to look at him on the basis of being a Reform candidate, if you're a Reform candidate who votes Remain, that's obviously not going to go down well with the base that are Reform.
And I think the Labour volunteers have had a really good time selling this on the doorstep, is that he is a competent politician. And actually, there's that combination of being able to talk to people,
I love
really
just
enjoy
the dramatic
talking to people,
movements
really
of the
enjoy
boxes.
listening to people,
It's my favourite thing about
but
the
also
election.
being a seasoned enough politician to know how to get things done. He's been a Secretary of State, he's been in opposition,
Pochin performing being outrageous, Kenyon is just a disaster. I agree. That's the difference.
He will know how to get things done.
And so how do you think Rob ran the campaign?
Well, look, I think Rob has very much gone on the local ticket. I mean, he really is a genuine local man, you know, a plumber here in the constituency.
I'm not sure they're the first boxers, I don't know. This is just the clip that I'm seeing. I'm hoping not.
Knows an awful lot of people because of his work here, and that's clearly how we've run it. We've very much gone out on the message that Andy Burnham is using the people and the voters of Makerfield, and we will see how they feel about that through the night.
I think this framing is wrong, though, because I actually think that people relish the idea of them actually having a direct say on who will be Prime Minister. I actually think that will galvanise voters in Makerfield rather than put them off, personally. At least Poacher won her seat for Reform, I suppose. Yeah, no, that's true. Popular take, the Lords is the only place bills get proper scrutiny now. True, but I still think it should be an elected body rather than, like, obviously the way it exists now, where it's just kind of whoever's in power just gets to pick a few people to go in there. Like, that's the bit that I don't like. And the fact that, they can get passed down and stuff. I think there should be a second chamber. I don't think it should be the House of Lords in its current form, if that makes sense. I don't know what replaces it, but it's not democratic in its current form, in my opinion.
Stone to Parliament. Andy Burnham has made no secret about his desire to run for Prime Minister, and if he does win tonight, I think we will be facing an election for the Prime Minister, let alone, of course, the election for the Greater Manchester Mayor, which he is causing.
And what have you made of some of Rob's remarks in the past?
Did you find them
offensive? I mean, he said, "I'm sexist, sorry, but I am. Women can't ref drive or give directions."
It just sounds terrible when you read it out loud, doesn't it? I mean, it's terrible regardless, but, like, you have to... I mean, you almost feel bad for anyone who's been set out to defend it, but then you remember the reforms, so you don't.
He said that women seek abortions for vanity purposes, and he reportedly argued women want reproductive rights so they can shag anyone they want and then use an abortion as a secondary or last chance form of contraception. How do you think that goes down? I mean, how do you personally feel when I quote those to you?
Well, of course, that doesn't sit well with me at all. I'm a woman that speaks all the time up for on the behalf of women, women's equality, the safety of women and girls. And so, those remarks, of course, don't sit comfortably with me. But what I would say is he's shown remorse for it. He said he was sorry. He said he wouldn't say that.
Oh, well, that's all right then.
Now, some of those remarks are quite old, and he
some of them were like 2 years ago.
regrets it.
I'm pressing X to doubt on that. Remember on Question Time when he responded with allegedly to admitting he was sexist? Yeah. I think the thing I love is that they constantly try and parade themselves around as like the protectors of women, and then half of their candidates always end up being sexist. Like, always, without fail, and half probably being generous. Jesus, does he want to get elected? No, I don't think he does. Well, I mean, I think he does. I think he's just a terrible candidate. Let's have a look. Oh, here we go. This is a good story here from The Guardian that came out. I hadn't seen this. This came out this morning. I hadn't seen this. Exclusive. Nigel Farage has been trying to block Bank of England cryptocurrency plan that could be costly for billionaires bankrolling his party. Reform UK leader has said Christopher Harbour wants nothing in exchange for his £5 million personal gift to Farage, revealed by The Guardian. But Farage used his private meeting at bank to urge governor to drop plans for state-run alternative to digital currency that has made his Thailand-based benefactor one of the richest people in the world. Convenient. Farage gets a gift of $5 million, and all of a sudden he starts telling banks not to regulate cryptocurrency or introduce sovereign digital currency to the UK. Interesting. Very interesting. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. I'm sure that there's nothing to that at all. You see Farage reposting the publicity vote from 2024 after England vs Croatia last night. Yes, we covered that at the very start of the stream. Yeah, very funny. Yeah, there were so many of those weird... You'll see those Twitter pictures of, like, Farage, you know, AI pictures of Farage beating up people on Question Time. They were just all over my feed for a while. I don't know what was going on. What was I going to say earlier? Oh yeah, there was a good clip I wanted to show of them at the polling stations earlier, and they do get called out by someone over the £5 million gift. I'll see if I can get the clip up. Hang on. I'll skip forward a bit. For some reason, whenever I play a video on stream, it really doesn't like it. Maybe if I turn the quality down.
Alright guys.
I'll skip forward a little bit, because there's this one bit at the end. So they're all doing thumbs up and all of that.
Please. Thank you. Rob, this way as well. Thank you. Rob, over here, please. Thank you.
Very good. All right. Thank you. Great stuff. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
This was it. This was the bloke here. So watch this bloke here.
£5 billion worth of security. Pathetic, isn't it? Have a nice day, mate.
And so I don't know whether you heard that, but he said, £5 million you spent on that security. 5 million quid for that is pathetic. So that was quite funny. I thought that was funny.
Cheers, guys.
So yeah, and then it goes on to show a bit of Burnham's campaign, which we can listen to if you want.
Isn't it great to run a positive campaign, particularly in these times, you know, giving people some hope.
I will say, the Reform one looked so much more, what's the word I'm looking for, corporate than this one. This one looks a bit more natural, I know.
That's what today is about. That's what the whole campaign has been about, hasn't it? The idea that we just need... And we need that as well. That's what this campaign is always about. The blues as well. But no, honestly, I can't thank you enough, because you've brought that positivity and you've kind of empowered me to run a positive by-election campaign. You've given me that strength in the campaign. I've carried it forward. And it is about us. It is about everybody, all of us. And that's the change we need, don't we?
You'll notice as well, I'm not the first person to notice this, but obviously the posters, very, very little mention of Labour, and that's probably deliberate.
Don't need to go down the path to the politics of the United States of America, where people will be in the street and they won't talk to each other.
I will say as well, it's very refreshing to actually have a Labour politician that's going to call out how toxic the US is at the moment.
I will work hard, if successful, to bring people back together in this constituency, to make sure that we work as one and we really start to turn things around, make people's lives better and give them the hope that they need. And you've brought that hope to Makerfield, everybody, and we thank you for it. Steve's brought his new grandson. He's a granddad.
All right, it's a cute baby. That's a cute baby.
Campaign has aged me, but he's a cute baby.
So there you go. That was a bit of a speech from Andy Burnham there as well. Not doubting what you're saying, it just blows my mind that people fall for the pint and flat cap tactics. Yeah, it sucks because he's obviously not that type of guy, but people believe it he is for some reason, despite so much evidence to the contrary of him not being, you know, just, you know. But it was the same with Boris. They tried to act like he was some kind of, like, lad when he'd been to Eton, for fuck's sake. Like, do you know what I mean? It's crazy. I don't know how it works, but it just does. Ooh, we have had a council by-election result. Sween Park and Grange, Rochford. I hope I'm saying that right. Is it Sween? I think so. Swain? I'm not sure. Council by-election result. Conservatives 56.1%, up plus 39.3. Reform 24.8%, down 14.9. The Lib Dems on 13.2, down 3%. Greens down 3%. Labour down just under 2%. Conservative gain from Reform. Interesting. Wonder what happened there. Reform councillor resigned immediately after being elected due to racist posts, and clearly the Tory candidate was very well regarded, former leader of the local council. Oh, it was this guy. I remember this guy. Wasn't this the guy? Yeah, I remember this guy. Stuart Pryor. Turns out he had priors. if you pardon the pun there, sorry, it's getting late, it's nearly midnight. My jokes aren't good, so they gain from themselves. True. The thing is, it's terrible because there is a part of me that's like, I would take Tories winning over Reform. I know that sounds bad, but it's like, if I was in a Tory Reform marginal seat, I probably would. Do you know what I mean? Just to make sure. Yeah, let me get... I want to get that clip up of Stuart Pryor because I remember there being a really funny one. Paste and search. Videos. Oh, is it this? I'm hoping it was this. No, that's a different guy who resigned over gay porn, apparently. There's a lot of councillors that have resigned. There's too many to count. That's why I can't find this specific one. I swear there was a video of him or a picture of him in like a Germany from the 1940s uniform, but I could be wrong. I'm trying to see if I can have a look here. Aha! Yes, this was the guy. I found him.
Yeah, Simon Murphy from the Mirror. Stuart Pryor?
Hi, yes.
Yeah, how you doing? You're standing for Reform, aren't you?
I am indeed.
Yeah.
Yes.
How's your campaigning going?
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
not
good.
too bad.
Okay.
Yeah, leafleting mostly. Sorry, who is it?
Sorry, Simon Murphy from the Mirror.
Oh, hi.
How are you doing?
Yeah, all right. Yeah, not too bad.
So you're standing in two different bits of the local area, aren't you?
That's right. Yeah, I've actually been told not to talk to any media.
Not to talk to media?
Yeah.
Why could that possibly be?
Against you.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest.
Always a good sign when they're told not to talk to the media, isn't it? Always a good sign. Sure, that means they've got nothing to hide whatsoever.
With you, it's the first time that I've stood.
Yeah.
Being a local lad in those two areas.
Yeah.
Very much enjoyed it. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, beyond that, there's not really much I can tell you, to be honest.
Right. I mean, the reason I'm here, Stuart, is because we're aware of some tweets that you made on your Twitter account.
Right. Okay.
You're aware of the Twitter account I'm talking about. I think you deleted it in February.
No.
Okay. So I've got the tweets here. There's some racist tweets.
Right. Okay.
You've spoken about white people as the master race.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, okay, that makes sense why he's had to stand down. Jesus Christ. Fucking hell. Oh, it's always the same shit, isn't it?
I don't recall that at all.
You see this one here?
Recall that. No, don't recall
Yeah.
You see there?
No.
Essex Priory, Stuart Pryor.
I do not recall that at all. Blimey.
Yeah. There's another one here where you've talked about black people, and you've implied that they have smaller brains.
Goodness me, no, that is
Oh
not
my
me.
God, Jesus, it just keeps going. Bloody hell, I thought Kenyan was bad. Bloody hell. Jesus Christ.
And this one here, you've said that there cannot be genocide against Muslims.
That's not what I would have put down.
No, I'm just going to show.
Yeah, no, it's not me, mate. You must have got another Stuart Pryor who lives in Essex. I'm sure there's millions of them.
Show you some other ones. Here, you've obviously used the racial slur against the black man.
Right.
You've said here Muslims don't belong.
No.
This is
And then
genuinely some like thick of it level stuff.
It's obviously an ex-Labour MP who's tweeting about a woman of Punjabi heritage being raped in a racist attack, and you've put good, reap it.
Jesus Christ, man. Do they not check? Do they not check? They can't. Either that or they think that it's not disqualifying, which is worse.
No, this isn't me. I'm gonna.
Do you know how we know that this is you?
Doc,
do you know how we know that this is you, Stuart?
How do you know that?
You've tweeted a picture of your house on this account.
Oh my God! Oh, this is tragic. So this is the guy that lost to that that Conservative councillor by the looks of it.
Right.
This house.
Okay.
It shows that plant there. You've got a dog, haven't you?
I do have a dog.
Yeah. You've tweeted a picture of that dog from
Right.
this account, so that's how we know it's yours. And
Right.
you've tweeted a picture of the front here, this house.
Okay, I don't recall these tweets.
Another one here, you've talked about immigrants are cancer.
This looks like it's something that's been kind of created against me.
Child poverty is...
Yeah, mate. No, I'm sure it is. He's trying so hard. Oh, it looks like it could be one of them. AI. No.
a construct of the third world.
No, I'm gonna terminate this. I'm going to ask you to leave if you don't mind.
I'm happy to leave, but I just want to make sure that you're aware that we intend to publish a story naming you as a Reform candidate and naming you as having made these tweets from Stuart Pryor, Essex Priory. And we know that this is your account because you've tweeted a picture of your house and your dog on there.
Okay, that's definitely not me.
Right, so how do you think that a picture how do you think a picture of your dog ended up on this account?
No, but is this what politics is about? Kind of smearing.
We're holding you to
not
account.
Smearing if you read the things you've said. They always do this. If they check, they wouldn't know anyone to stand true.
For the tweets that you've made.
I appreciate.
Are you
I wonder though, because you don't hear. I mean, obviously, like with the Restore candidate. Obviously, I'm not saying Restore are better in this regard, but I didn't hear many controversies from her. Maybe it's because she didn't say that much. I don't know.
Are you a racist, Stuart?
Definitely not a racist. No.
Right.
No, definitely not, mate. Definitely. Jesus Christ, man. I was hacked by Russia. Yep. Local lad, really. Yeah, I saw someone say, local lad, he's 50 if he's a date. Oh, that was brilliant. Genuinely tragic. Like, bloody hell. This is what I mean. I think if they're this incompetent at a local level, how bad would they be running a fucking country? I know I'm speaking to the choir here when I say that, but like, Jesus Christ. I want to thank you all for the likes on the stream. We're currently, I think, at 48 likes. So thank you very much. As always, subscribe if you are new to the channel. I very much appreciate that. Also, if you want to get me to answer a question quickly, super chats are there as well. But of course, you don't have to. We also have memberships, which help out the channel as well, because this channel is very new. But thank you very much for that. Just do my obligatory little bit there. There you go. See what else is going on. My gut is now saying that Reform have lost this quite strongly. That's what my gut is saying right now. Oh, there's also a couple of other by-election results. One was a Plaid Cymru hold. The other was a Conservative hold. I am curious whether the Tories will be able to cling on to some sort of relevance, because as much as they have diminished massively, it is worth saying that there are some areas that will just vote for them no matter what. Ooh, I need some fresh air after that mirror piece. Flipping heck, I know. It's terrible, isn't it? Oh, thank you, Stephen MC81, for becoming a council member. Thank you very much. I called it councillors because, like, I thought that was a good for the political theme, but thank you very much. Very much appreciate that. Clarence Oddbody, AS2 with the £5 super chat towards your next Doctor Who box set. Thanks very much. I recently picked up the TV movie Steelbook, and I need to watch it because I'm in 4K. Very excited for that. Thank you very much appreciate it. But from both of you, very much appreciate that, guys. Really, really do. This channel's very new, so it's a help, because obviously, and as well, just to be candid, like, because politics is more controversial, YouTube doesn't like putting, like, you know, good ad rates on it. So I really do appreciate that. Absolute legend. Thank you, Clarence. Thank you very much. I hope Reform loses at 30% with Labour over at 50%. That's the best outcome. I think that's too optimistic. I think Reform will lose. I don't think it'll be that far apart. I could see maybe a 10% gap. That's kind of where I'm hovering towards right now. See what else is going on. It's looking pretty quiet at the moment. I'm basically waiting just to see if there's any other major kind of developments from the counting, any other people saying what they think the result's going to be. Checking with the BBC coverage.
Is there a point at which you start to worry that a chunk of voters are turning out for Reform who you just didn't think might have been in the game at all?
Well, we've been through elections very recently here, and we know that there are always these moments on the day when people will turn up whose votes you haven't found as a political party. But as I said, our vote was really holding up today, and it was as we had expected it to, from the incredible amount of canvassing that we've done here in this constituency.
So
I think Andy
Labour
does
person
have
here,
personal
at least
appeal
Andy,
here.
I think it is.
They really remember.
They think they're canvassing,
particularly when he fought for us during the pandemic, and that came up on doorsteps over and over again over these few weeks, including today. So there's no panic here, but we always knew this would be a tough fight, and we're not being complacent.
Your colleague Jess Phillips told us about 10 minutes ago that whatever happens this weekend, Keir Starmer should set out a timetable in a dignified way so that the party doesn't have to essentially drag him out, whether Burnham wins or not. Is she right?
Well, look, obviously, I'd expect the Prime Minister to pick up the phone to a winning by-election candidate to congratulate him, and I'm sure he will do that, and I'm sure there'll be a conversation between them. But it's far too early to talk about these things. We've only an hour into counting the votes here at this by-election. And
we all know why this by-election is
particularly for the people of Makerfield, Andy has been really clear that he is coming home to Makerfield in order to deliver change for people, not just in Ashton and Orrell and Winstanley and Hindley Green, but in towns and villages like ours right across the country. He will be their voice, their champion, and he'll fight for them. And he has rightly, all the way through this by-election, retained a very strong focus on what is happening right here in Wigan. And I know that he wants to do that tonight as well, and I think he's absolutely right to do so. It's about respecting the people who've come out and put their cross on the ballot, hopefully for Labour. And if he does win tonight, he'll want to address them directly, not get dragged into conversations about what happens next.
But you've just said, though, that he's been very clear with people that he's fighting this by-election not just for the people of Makerfield, but for towns and villages like theirs right
meaning
across
the country. Yeah.
And you've also said you expect that he will have a conversation.
Starmer is the Joe Biden of the Labour Party, unfortunately. That is the most apt comparison.
Now, that sounds pretty much like
is the most apt comparison.
Telling people tonight very openly.
To be honest, though, I think at one point Biden probably believed in more than Starmer did, to be honest. But yeah, in terms of just being kind of electoral poison, very similar in that respect, yeah, 100%.
If he wins, the challenge is on.
No, what I'm saying very clearly is what Andy said himself, which is
change is coming, is what he says.
Taking everything that he's.
Well, has someone done that meme yet of, you know, the wrestlers, and it's the one guy behind the other guy?
What I've been saying now for 60.
And it's Andy Burnham stood behind Keir Starmer. There's been a new Politics UK tweet, so I'm going to take a look at what that's saying. New Labour sources are now increasingly confident of Andy Burnham winning the Makerfield by-election. One said, think we've got it. Another said, feeling good. There you go. See the super chat. Thank you very much to James Mahan. I hope I'm saying that right, or Mahan. I hope I'm saying that right. For the £10 super chat. Said, great stream, Thomas. Great channel, Thomas. Thank you very much. What would you prefer? Oh, let me get it up. Hang on. What would you prefer? A future role in Doctor Who or the Senate? Oh, God. I think Doctor Who would be less controversial, and it would probably be better for my mental state. Then again, it would really depend, you know. I think it depends what role in each. Because, I mean, there's also a lot of pressure in being Doctor Who showrunner as well, being in Doctor Who. I think if I got to be, like, you know, like a one-off recurring character in Doctor Who, that'd be quite fun. I don't think I could take the pressure of being showrunner. Likewise, don't know whether I could take the pressure of being First Minister of Wales. But maybe, you know, I don't know. Maybe a minister of some kind, but I don't know. I could go either way on that. I'm leaning more towards Doctor Who, though, because I think it'd be less controversial, maybe. Although, having said that, I have said this before, but it genuinely is true. I think my Doctor Who comment sections have been more, what's the word I'm looking for, kind of contentious than my politics comment sections recently. I do wish politics would get off Twitter. Yeah, that is valid. The only reason I'm using Twitter is because, like, it's the one that's, like, the quickest, like, you know, on the news, so that's why I always do it. Recast your sketch, do it. Dear. I always find Lisa and Andy to be the most robotic MP I've ever seen. Yeah, I'm not a big Lisa and Andy fan personally, but yeah, I'm not a huge fan either, to be honest. Isn't she the culture secretary as well, I believe? I think. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Yeah, I reckon Labour have got it. That's my ultimate takeaway. I think Labour have got it by slightly more than is expected. I think Reform will still put a decent showing in, and I think Restore may actually slightly overperform their polling. I'm locking in that final projection. That's my projection for tonight. Based on purely vibes and my own sort of calculations, that's what I'm thinking is going to happen. Yeah, she is culture secretary. I thought so. Like I say, one of my main issues with government recently is how little they put into the arts, and obviously she is responsible for that. So, yeah, I don't know.
Years as the MP for this town.
I'm going to refresh.
And there are a group of people in our...
Hang on.
Danny Kruger, Lisa Nutty was suggesting if Andy Burnham wins tonight, that will show that reform can be beaten and you will have the red light going up to the advances that you've made in an extraordinary way in the last couple of years.
The only reason Andy Burnham is in contention at all here, the only reason Labour might win tonight is because of the unpopularity of Labour's leader. I mean, that's the extraordinary paradox of this election. They've got all the people who always vote Labour, which is a diminishing number of people, but there's that. And then they've got all the people who are desperate to see the back of Starmer, people I have every sympathy with. There isn't a huge pro-Burnham vote. There might be a little. But the fact is, this is a referendum on Starmer.
Somewhat, yes. Somewhat, yes. Like, it is true that the Burnham vote is being galvanised by people who don't like Starmer. However, people who don't like Starmer also have reform. And the fact that, I mean, I have said this a few times. I think that, in fact, I tweeted about this weeks ago, but I think that if Reform lose this and they lose it quite, not badly, but they lose it by quite a distance, I do think it brings up a point that they don't historically do very well in by-elections. Like, if you think about it, a lot of these by-elections that they've been seen to be the favourites in, Caerphilly, Gorton and Denton, Makerfield, they lose. And I think part of it is just because they're seen as too contentious by most of the electorate. So most of the electorate will galvanise around whatever the alternative is to beat them, whether that is Greens, Plaid Cymru, Nationalist parties, or whether it's Labour in this case. I think it really, if anything, it kind of shows that the contentious brand of politics that Reform represent, whilst it may galvanise a certain section of the electorate, puts off more people than it attracts. Like, we've already seen the data that, more people would, the party people are most likely to vote against is Reform. 3 a.m. they're saying for result. Yeah, I ain't staying up till 3 a.m. I'll be honest. I am struggling right now. But I will be back in the morning to cover the result. It's been lovely. But it says it's bath time, so I must leave you. Have a lovely evening. Don't forget to tap the like. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm going to head off. Well, maybe not yet. I'll see how long I have. But I am struggling myself. But thank you all very much for your support. I do appreciate it. I was hoping maybe to get a little bit more, squeeze a little bit more out, but we'll see. But yeah, let's carry on with what Danny Kruger was saying.
Reform have done extremely well across the country. We're not going to win every seat. I hope we can win tonight. The fact is, we could win. It's on a knife edge. The fact that we're in contention in a seat which has been Labour for 100 years is an extraordinary result. We are the only national party now challenging Labour across the UK. And tonight, whether we win or lose, we will have demonstrated it's us or Labour at the next election.
Except you said that the only reason people might...
Again, if we win or lose, they don't sound confident. It's not that usual braggadocious Reform kind of style.
Not vote for Labour is because of Keir Starmer. So if Keir Starmer's gone, then you're in big trouble, aren't you?
No, because as I said earlier, the fact is, whether it's Starmer or anybody else, the problem is Labour. So they want to get rid of Starmer now.
Wow, you just said the problem was Starmer's unpopularity.
No, on the
and then
contrary,
you said the problem is Labour. No, forgive me. In your first answer, you were separating the two out. You were saying the problem is that people don't like Starmer. You've got sympathy with that. Now you're saying
there is a number of people who will
Labour.
always vote Labour. That number is going down, and they will always vote Labour, whoever the leader is. There's another group of people who just want to see the back of Starmer. My point is, whoever wins the Labour leadership, whether it's Burnham or Streeting or anybody, they will have the same problem, and they will be just as unpopular very soon. The fact is, they are fundamentally split, this party. They cannot govern. They can't deliver the changes that are needed.
Oh, and Reform are excellent at governing, as we know from Kent County Council. But anyway, I think I am going to tune that in for tonight, because it's been about 2.5 hours for me. So I am going to tune it in for tonight. But as I said, tomorrow morning, I am going to be giving my thoughts on the results. following everything. But thank you everyone for tuning in. Very much appreciate it. I'm sure there are other streams to continue your binge if you would like to. But thank you very much for your support tonight. Really appreciate that. And I will see you soon. Take care, everybody.